Hi guys, welcome to yet another episode of HSP TV. Today is episode number 16 and it's about to be or not to be an HSE. And an HSE is a highly sensitive entrepreneur. I'm going to do something different today and I feel a bit tense because it's out of my comfort zone. I'm going to try and be a little bit more personal and share with you my journey, my story. And I've never done this before, so wish me luck. I'm doing it right now. Hi DJ Latino, nice of you to join. So if you're joining, if you're watching me, give me a shout out, give me a wave, and I'll shout you out in the episode. I would love to see and hear from all of you. And of course, if you have questions during this episode, you can always ask them. I will read them out loud and try to answer them to my best abilities. So getting out of your comfort zone, it's a scary thing. I want to take you along my journey into how I became a highly sensitive entrepreneur. And actually started when I was very young. When I was really young and first started noticing the world, I was very open and very idealistic. And I basically thought everybody was like me. And that meant that everybody would treat me like I would treat everybody else, and that everybody was thinking along the same lines as that I was thinking. And yeah, that's basically what I thought. And I was also a very curious child. My parents often lost me. And that's not because I didn't want to stay with them, but because the entire world interested me. I wanted to see everything, and the moment I saw something, I went for it, I went after it, and that meant they lost me a lot. But when I got older, when I grew up, I found out that not many people are like me. I didn't even know one person like me, and they didn't think like me, and they didn't talk like me, and they didn't treat me the way I would treat them. And it then came a period in my life that I felt kind of lost, that I kind of felt very alone, and there was even a time when I seriously thought that there was something wrong with me, that I was weird or strange, and yeah, maybe broken even. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I did feel that there were not a lot of people, maybe nobody out there that was like me, and I felt very alone and very scared sometimes even, but mostly disappointed in how people interacted with me and in how people talked to me and treated me. And it made me feel like the outcast. And I remember that was not really a nice feeling. I don't know if you're watching this, if you can relate to this. I hear versions of my story a lot in my practice. So if you are a highly sensitive person, then I think you can relate to what I'm telling right now. So I made it through kindergarten and I made it through middle school, but not without having some bumps along the road. I was that child that always got picked on. And I think it's, looking back, I think it was because I had a rough childhood and my father was very dominant, and he abused me, and it made me a quiet mouse, and it made me take in a lot of shit without really saying something back. And I think that children feel that in middle school, and that is the reason why they start picking on somebody, because you are an easy victim, an easy target. You won't say anything back, you won't stand up for yourself, and apparently that constitutes as fun. As a highly sensitive person, I don't see the fun in that, but apparently for a lot of other people. Hi Emma, nice of you to join. Apparently for a lot of other people, it's funny to pick on people, to make them cry, to hurt them. and then to laugh at them and to make life and school a hell. So at home my life was basically a hell, and at school my life was a hell. And yeah, I didn't have many places to go to, and I've made me extra alone, made me feel extra alone. And then came the period that you needed to choose what you wanted to become. And as a true HSP, which I didn't know I was at that moment, I didn't know what I wanted to become. I could be very jealous of other people who knew they were going to be a ballerina or a fireman or a doctor or an astronaut or whatever. And when people ask me, what do you want to become when you grow up? I answered, happy. What I want to become when I grow up is happy. And that's emotions. Out of the comfort zone. Keep going. Happy said a lot about how I was feeling and what I was going through. So I had a hard time deciding what I wanted to become. I didn't really know. Turned out I was good at school. I was good at learning. So that was really a benefit, because I didn't think I would have gotten this good grades if I wasn't good at school. But I still didn't know what I wanted to become. There were so many things that interested me, but there was not one job title that I thought, oh yeah, this is it. So I'm probably guessing you will recognize it as well, because as an HSP we are multi-talented and we are multi-interested. And that makes it hard to choose what you want to become. So in middle school I had a broad lesson package. I did every language there was. I had history, I had geography, I had biology, I had economy, I had math. So I could go all kinds of places with the education. And that was because I didn't know what I wanted to become. And then due to certain circumstances that I don't want to get into right now, because I'm already emotional and getting out of my comfort zone, and for now this is enough. But I had to leave home. I had to live by myself, and that meant I needed a job. I needed to work. I needed to have a roof over my head, and I needed to pay the bills. So I got my Atheneum diploma, which is a good diploma here in my country. And I went to the temp agency and I registered myself, and I got hired working for a bank as the cashier. It was not something I chose, but it was something that chose me. Hey Leila, nice of you to join. And I started working there just to have money to pay the bills and yeah, to be able to live somewhere. And I luckily had a boss that saw my potential, and he told me, I think you are too smart to keep working here. Wouldn't you like to be a programmer? And I thought, well, okay, that sounds interesting, but what is it, and what kind of programmer? And then he explained what it was, and he told me that it was Java. It was a new programming language, and you could build software for the computer with it, but you could also build websites and other web functionality with it. And it sounded cool, so I thought, yeah, why not? So they made me do a test to see if I was suitable to become a programmer, and I aced the test. So I enrolled into the company program where they were retraining employees to become a Java programmer. And in my spare time I had already done a lot with computers, because my dad had one of the first networks of that era, and we also had the Commodore 64 and all the other old computers that are now dinosaurs compared to what we have now. And I started doing graphic work, designing websites, building websites. So becoming a programmer was not a big stretch, and I liked designing, I liked the graphics, and I even liked building things. So I thought, well, not. And that's how I landed in the programmer role. And from there, I got invited by my bosses to expand my knowledge and to do more studies. And then eventually somebody told me, well, you are more communicative than most of your colleagues. Would you like to become a project manager, to manage the projects and to be the liaison between the client and the programmers and to keep everything on track? And I thought, well, yeah, sure, sounds cool, why not? And I started doing my Prince certification, and I did ETIL certification. And then I was a project manager, and I liked it. I liked being the one that was a troubleshooter, that had to talk with the clients, do the presentations, but was also able to translate what the client wanted into technical speak that the programmers could understand. And I liked the diversity, and usually I was a hands-on project manager, which meant that I actually worked on the projects, not just as the project manager, but usually also as a designer, the graphic designer, and also often as the front-end girl in my case, because most programmers don't really care about how it looks. It's about that it works, and I am more a fan of the aesthetics and the way it looked. So I found that I liked having a job with multiple hats, that was never the same each day, that kept challenging me, and that was diverse. And so I thought I had found my niche. I thought I had landed on my feet, and I thought that, well, everything was right with the world. And then my boss came to me, and Agile was becoming a thing, and he asked me if I wanted to become a Scrum Master, which is the Agile version of a project manager, when I say it really crudely, and I know there's a lot more to it, but for you who are not familiar with the terminology, this is enough to know that a project manager and a Scrum Master are very similar. And I started doing that, and I loved it because it inspires teams to be more involved. Agile is a way of working in which the team decides how it works and what techniques it uses. It's the client that says, I want this type of program, and it needs a login screen, and then you can decide with what technique you will build the login screen, what database you use, what protocols, and that's a team effort, and that makes that the team is more involved in the project, and that the project in itself runs better, and usually on the latest technologies, because if you're a good programmer, then that's what you're interested in. And I also liked that role. So I was fairly happy in my work, and then there came a moment when I kept running into the same things at work. I kept losing my job, usually after a year, 1.5 years, 2 years tops, and it almost never was my fault. There was only one time that I actually quit my job myself, because I was invited by a friend who worked at another company to come and work there, because they had a lot of work and there was not work at my company where I was working at that moment. And that's the only time I decided to switch companies myself. But all the other times the companies went bankrupt, or they were taken over by a bigger company who fired all the existing personnel, or half of the company started their own company which bankrupted the half that I was still working for. And a lot of things like this kept following me around, and with every new job and every new job title, people told me that I had become more advanced in my career. So instead of being a junior programmer, I suddenly was a mid-year programmer, and then I was a senior programmer, because on paper I had been doing it for 5 or 6 years, but in practice I had been doing it for 3 months, so I didn't feel like a senior programmer. I still felt like a junior programmer, and that started to nag and started to not feel good. Hi Katrina, nice of you to join. And that was the first moments that I started feeling like they had too high expectations of me. They wanted too much of me, and it didn't feel okay. And also the way that people treat you in companies, especially in IT. I'm not sure if it's the same in other companies, but what I saw is that there was a lot of down kicking and ass kissing to get higher up, and there were a lot of political games in companies. And as an HSP, I don't play games. I think you can recognize what I'm saying. I think we as an HSP, we are very open and sincere and truthful, and we don't play games. So I usually had no clue that people were playing games, or that they were cutting the legs of the chair out from under me until I fell down and was fired, or was asked to leave again. And all these politics, they were not my forte, but they were also not the things that I wanted to spend my energy and my time on. I wanted to be valued for the work that I did, for the effort that I put in, for the good job that I did. Because if you're an HSP, you not only do the things that they ask of you, but you do like 6 to 8 things besides those things as well. Because when you start something, you encounter something else, and then you just don't leave it, you fix that as well, and then you continue, and then you find something else that's not okay, and then you fix that as well. So by the time that we finish, we have this completed product, and we not only did what they asked us to, but we did all the other things as well. And I wanted to be valued and recognized for that, for doing a good job, for doing all the extra miles without being asked. And I wanted to have how do you say this? I wanted to have the authority to organize my work. The only thing you need to tell me is I want you to do this and this, and it needs to be finished by that and that time. And you can be sure that it's not only finished at that time, but like I said, all the other things are finished as well. But I found that to not happen a lot in the companies. My boss, maybe it's just my boss, but especially my last boss, he was very distrusting. He didn't want you to work at home because he thought if you work at home you don't do anything. So it was mandatory to work in the office. And I had a lot of colleagues who were paying more attention to their colleagues and not to their work, and it started feeling not okay. And there came this moment that I had a very severe car accident on my way to work, and I basically totaled the car, and it was not my fault, but it did happen. And motivated as I was, I had the tow truck tow me to my work to start working. And then when I arrived there, I apparently was white as a sheet. I couldn't get out of my words. I was foggy and hazy, and people, they told me, what are you doing here? And I told them, yeah, but we are in a crisis. Half of the company left, and I need to work. And they told me to go home because I had a serious accident and I needed to recover. But that's how dedicated I was, and I think most HSPs are that dedicated to their boss. They would go through any lengths to be there, to show up and to perform. And eventually I found that I couldn't perform because the accident had been more serious than I wanted to acknowledge. And I went to my boss to talk to him about it, and he wouldn't believe me, so he sent me to the company doctor. And the company doctor, he heard my story and he looked at me and he told me, are you crazy? You must be crazy. Tell me you're crazy. And at first I didn't know what he was talking about. I could only look at him and I thought, what are you talking about? And then he told me, yeah, people with an accident as serious as yours, They don't go back to working 40 hours a week. You must be crazy. He said, you're not going back to work. The next 3 months, you're going to take off. You're going to sleep and listen to your body. And after 3 months, I want to see you again. And then we will determine if you are ready to get back to work and rebuild your working hours. And I was flabbergasted. It didn't occur to me to call in sick. It didn't occur to me to not go to work, because you have a job, so you go working. And I see this with a lot of the HSPs that I have in my practice. And of course, eventually it ended me up in a burnout, because I had been taught that you only call in sick when you have a fever or you are absolutely not capable of getting out of bed. And that was not the case. I was capable of getting out of bed. I didn't have a fever, so I didn't think to call in sick. And yeah, well, I think you can relate. I hear this a lot from other people. And well, short story, or long story short, it's already been a long story, but I'm trying to shorten it a bit. Eventually, I got back to work. I started rebuilding my hours. I was about halfway through, and then my boss called me in and he told me that he wanted to fire me because I wasn't motivated. And I think that you couldn't have hurt me more if you had physically hit me in the face. I had let myself be towed to work by the tow truck after a severe accident, and then they tell you you are not motivated enough and that they want to fire you. And that was the moment I thought, I'm done. I'm done with this world. I'm done with these people. I'm done with the way they are treating you. I'm just done. And then came the search into what's next? What am I going to do now? And I started thinking, what makes me happy? What would make me happy? And I thought it would make me really happy if people were happy with me. If I could do something for somebody in their lives that actually made a difference, that made them feel so much better, and that they would be grateful to me for helping them with that. I thought that would make me really happy. And I started talking about it with a lot of my friends and my family, and eventually they told me that they thought it would be a good idea to do a career switch. And then I thought, what have I done that has really made a difference in my life? And I came to acupuncture. Acupuncture really saved my life. I had severe migraines, 3 days every month that I had a month. I needed a month to get over them, and it was horrible. And acupuncture cured me of it. So acupuncture saved my life, and I thought, wow, what if I could do the same for other people? What if I could save other people's lives with acupuncture? And then I started talking about that and wanting to do that. And then I think everybody in my environment, they told me, oh yes, that suits you so much more than what you are doing. I never really understood why you wanted to work in IT. And I think it's because I didn't really want to. I just rolled into it. And a lot of us just roll into our job, and it makes us very unhappy if you don't consciously choose what you want to become. So acupuncture and the idea started to live, and then I thought, oh wow, it's an expensive education, and I found an online course for acupressure, which is basically the same, but then with your fingers and not with needles. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to do this written course. It was a 3-month course, so that I can get a feel for the learning materials and the topics, and to see if it would excite me as much as I thought it would excite me. I ended up doing the whole course in a month with an end grade of a 9.8, which is almost the highest grade you can get in Holland. And I didn't know what came over me. I loved doing my homework. I loved spending time learning. And well, I decided right then and there I was going to become an acupuncturist. And I have not regretted that decision for one moment. I enjoyed the entire education. It is a 4-year education. It's very hard. We started the education with 35 people. Only 12 of us reached the final exams, and only 8 of us actually got our degree. And I was one of the lucky 8, and I loved going to school. I loved doing my homework. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually good at something, that I had found my calling, that this is what I needed to do. And I was so incredibly happy with it. And now I hear you thinking, yeah, but I'm watching you because you're a coach, and now you're telling me you're an acupuncturist. And you're right, I am both. Because halfway through my acupuncture education, I had a reading with a psychic, and she told me, you're going to become a coach. And my first response to that was laughter. I told her, you're crazy. I'm already doing a very expensive education to become an acupuncturist, and I sure as hell am not spending the same amount again for becoming a coach. No, 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 no. And she told me there are other ways of becoming a coach, and she saw it in my future, but I didn't want to believe her, and I just put it away in the cabinet in my head and never thought about it. But then near the end of my acupuncture education, and then I came into contact with coaching in nature. And again, I felt the same pull as with acupuncture. I love being in nature. I love walking in nature, and the prospect of helping people in nature to become their effortless self, their true self. It ignited a fire inside of me. But then I had the problem. I am an acupuncturist on one hand, I am a coach at the other. How do I combine the two? How do I make this into one company? Is it even possible? And then in my senior year, we got acupuncturists from all over the world coming to do a day workshop, and one of them was Joseph Müller. He's an acupuncturist from the Swiss, and he teaches acupuncture from not the traditional one, but the old school, the origins of acupuncture. And his theories are based on emotion. And he thinks and he says that most illnesses nowadays find their basis, their origin in emotions. And after listening to him, I couldn't agree more. And then I thought, well, this is the link between my acupuncture and my coaching. My coaching is highly sensitive people, which deals with emotions and how to handle them and energies. And acupuncture is also manipulating and handling energies to restore the natural balance. And in this case, we do it with emotions, not the physical complaints, but the emotions behind the physical complaints. And I felt like both worlds had joined, and it was a wonderful feeling. And that's how I became an entrepreneur. And I love it. I love the freedom. I love being able to decide what time I want to work, what time I want to get up, what clients I want to take on, if I work as an acupuncturist, if I work as a coach, if I combine the two, if I create new programs or new retreats or all the other wonderful things that I can do, because I am now my own boss, and I love and enjoy in the deepest core of my heart working with people and having sessions, either an acupuncture session or a coaching session with them, seeing them grow or seeing them get better and not be bothered by the things that were bothering them when they first contacted me. And that to me is truly a gift. So I feel blessed that I have been lucky enough to make the switch from being unhappy working for a boss to being a very happy, self-employed, highly sensitive entrepreneur. Thank you for watching this. It was very emotional for me at one point, and also very outside of my comfort zone, but I made it to the end. And if you made it watching to the end, then my thanks to you is great. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next week, next Thursday, 5:30 Amsterdam time, Facebook Live, HSP TV. Bye.